Hi everyone. So I made this video about 3 months ago. Man, time flies. And the video is about how to bounce a bus in Studio 165 because there's no native way to do it. So I made the video and then I've learned more in those 3 months. And then I went back today to watch it because I'd never released it. And there was a mistake that I made in the video. So when you watch this video, just keep in mind that there's a section where I talk about setting your tempo for the track to don't follow. That's wrong. I don't know. I was confused at the time with the tempo modes in Studio One. By default, they're supposed to be on follow. So if your tracks are on follow, leave them on follow. If they're on time stretch, leave them on time stretch. Whatever they are on, just leave them. Because I had said in the video, as you'll see, you need to change the tempo mode for the track. Ignore that part. And this video is basically how to bounce a bus while leaving your send effects not baked into the bus. So if you want to export like a stem, kind of like freezing a bus basically without the send effects included. And there's basically two ways to do it. One is one is mix down selection, and the second way is to use ghost recording, which is what I detail in this video. It's kind of long. I think it could have been explained a little bit better. But I wanted to release this just because it might help someone out there. I got really stuck on this, and I'm still actually working on this same song. Like, it's taken me 3 years now, and I'm so close to being done. So if I find better ways to do this, then I will release another video about it. But I hope this helps someone because I lost a lot of time because of kind of how Studio One works. There is an export stems feature and export stems feature. So I am going to try that, and that might bypass some of these things, but I'll try those things and then update the channel. So take this video with some caveats. This is not like the way to do this. These are two ways that you could potentially do this. So again, hope this helps someone. Thanks. So let's first define the problem. The problem is that in Studio One, there's no native way to bounce a bus. And this method will show you how you can preserve your send effects separately. So you're going to bounce a bus, you'll have the insert effects and all the inserts on the tracks feeding the bus in the output file, but you won't have the send effects baked in. Say you want to go to a real studio, you want to run it through their tape machine, which is something I want to do with this song. I want to take my sends separately so that I can give them the dry track, and when I go there I can blend in these sends a little bit less. So the section from the song that we're talking about specifically that I want to bounce is background vocals. And these background vocals, it's from the chorus part of my song, and the singing's really, I won't get into it, singing's not the best, but these background vocals are feeding this bus here, and there's 6 tracks of background vocals, these 6. And as a little addition, I've added a kick sample, and the only reason I've added this kick sample is just so that we can check the latency of any output file, just to make sure that things are lined up and to make sure that what we're getting is what we want to be getting. So just to reiterate, what we're trying to do here is get the output of this bus that's soloed here. And these 6 audio vocal tracks are feeding this bus. So what I want is the insert effects, any volume, panning, any insert effects on the bus, but I don't want any sends in my output file. The first thing we need to do is make sure that on each of these vocal tracks, since these are live takes, set tempo to don't follow. So that was the first thing. The first thing was making sure your tempo is set to don't follow. The second thing is you want to make sure that in the console, that the console come up, you don't have any insert effects on, you don't have any post things on, no mix effects. Make sure all that's disabled. The reason you're doing this is because when you do, depending on the method we use, either mix down selection or ghost record, you just want to make sure that it's not grabbing any kind of effects from upstream of the where the bus is feeding into. there's been some weird issues I've had where, well, we won't get into it for this video. I don't want to make it too confusing. The third thing you need to do is go down to your main section and just make sure that if you have any volume automation on it, set it to off. The fourth thing, this is optional. If you plan to take the output file, run it back through this bus, then you need to make sure you take off the insert effects and you need to disable the automation on any volume or panning. When you bounce with mix down selection, it's going to include the pan and volume automation. So like if you were to bounce it and then run it back through, it's going to do that twice. So you don't want to do that. So in this case, I'm not going to run my output file back through the bus. I'm just going to run my output file directly to main. And then on that output file, I'll drag my sends and send automation over to that new file, and I'll show you how you can do that. So now the fifth thing that we need to make sure in this case, because we don't want to include our sends as part of the track, the sends that are on the bus, I want to take those separately. As I said, if I'm going to a studio or something, or maybe I'm handing the files off to another friend, I don't want to include the send effects. I want to keep those separate. So I'm going to go to my bus here and I'm going to deactivate my sends by clicking on that little power button. And now all I've got active on my bus is the insert effects, and any volume and panning will be taken into account with mix down selection. I have automation lanes for my sends, but since my sends are deactivated, I don't need to worry about it. Okay, so we're ready to begin. Just to reiterate, I disabled effects on main. I disabled any automation on main for volume, and I made sure that my send effects are disabled on the bus. Those 4 things, maybe 5 if I missed anything. So now we're ready to do this. I'm going to take my mouse, hover over the tracks that I want, just click anywhere with the left mouse button, and then grab all of these track files while I'm holding down the button. I'm going to right click, and then you'll see this recent. If you don't have it under recent items, it may be under event. So go to event and then mix down selection. And this is going to mix down selection now. Okay. Now, what I would do is, if this was my song and I'm ready to go to the next part, this is my song. If I was ready to go to the next part, what I would do is I would label this track like Vocal Elmo. I called it Vocal Elmo because my voice sounds like Elmo. Vocal Elmo chorus bus mix down. And I would just save the file. I would rename this audio track. I could do both things at once by Shift Enter. And now this is routed to main. Ignore that, set to none. This is routed to main, and we're good. And the way I can confirm this is check out the kicks will line up. And in this case, they don't show that they line up, like the phasing looks off, but that's okay. If you were to do this test with the insert effects disabled on the bus, then you'll see an exact waveform. The reason we don't see an exact one-to-one waveform is just because there's insert effects on the bus that are getting processed and they're mangling the kick a little bit. For example, I've got a Pro EQ, I've got a delay, I've got a mix tool, I've got dirt on there. It's actually probably the dirt that is crushing the file a little bit, the waveform. So you're okay here. So I'm just going to show you a comparison of what we're hearing compared to the actual output track. And so the first thing I'm going to do, you wouldn't need to do this, but I'm just showing you just so that you have confidence that this solution works, is I'm going to unmute these, and I just select them and then hit 6 on the keyboard. I get that little unmute tool or mute, and then I click on these and they're unmuted again. And then all I'm going to do is just make sure that my bus is soloed and the mixdown file that I had is muted. So all I'm hearing is actually just the vocal tracks going through the bus. That's all. And I'm just doing this to show you what the output file compares like to this. So that's enough. I don't want to show you the rest of this. If I mute these now and I'm going to solo the mixdown file, exactly the same. In fact, I've tested this so thoroughly that if you were to put a level meter on main, say if I was to, in fact, I have a level meter on main, and you'll see that the resulting audio decibel level is exactly the same. So this is the mixdown file, minus 10.1. Now if I solo the bus with the original tracks, what we get here is 10.1, minus 10.1. So we're good here. So now we've got our mixdown file. I've renamed it correctly, and there's only one thing missing. Can you guess what it is? I'll give you 5 seconds, bro or gal. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's the send automation and send effects. So the output file doesn't have the sends, right? But now what if you want those sends when you're like playing back or listening in the song? So what you want to do is you want to grab those send effects and the send automation and grab them and bring them over to this newly output file. And the way you would do that is you would go to your console and then you would grab over each of the send effects. So you would just open up the console, open up the bus, which is here. I would open up my insert effects and my send effects, which you just click on this button for expand. And then I would grab each of these and I just hold down Alt and grab them, right? And close out the effects. And then if I go back to my range page F3, and if I just show you, you can see the send effects with the automation points are there. And I just grabbed one of them just to show you for example, but now you have your send effects on this track. And when I do this in my song or my project, what I do is I color it black, wherever black is here somewhere. Here we go. I color it black. Whoa. And the reason I do that is just, it just makes things clear for me so that like when I go through the rest of the song, I know all the tracks that are black have already been mixed down from a previous bus and they're ready to basically, maybe I'll throw them on another final bus just for vocals, and then I'll have, eventually my goal is just to have, you know, like 24 buses or under that ideally. And you know, if you're putting it through a tape machine, most tape machines are, some are even only like 8, but if you're lucky they might have 23 or 24 or something. So that's kind of how you do that. There is one final thing I forgot to mention, which is that once you've output your file, and this is one of the big things you might want to do, is you might want to disable all these tracks. And you just click on your track. In fact, I don't think buses will get disabled by default from what I remember. No, they don't. So you're just going to click on your tracks. So I'd click on my vocals, my, in this case, because I have a kick sample, which you don't need, but just my live takes. And I'm just going to click on them, hold down shift, click on the first one, and then right click, and then I'm going to go disable selected tracks. Boom. And then if it was me, I would either delete this bus, or I would probably, in my situation, I probably would keep it, but I'm just going to deactivate the inserts. In fact, you could even just save insert effects chain and then remove all these inserts, and now you've saved yourself some more processing. But make sure you disable any unused tracks. Don't just deactivate the sends. When you disable the tracks, it saves on CPU processing because it basically completely deactivates it in the software. So that's how you can use mixdown selection to bounce a group of tracks going into a bus while keeping the sends separately. So we explained how mixdown selection works and how you can use that to essentially get the bounce of a bus while keeping your sends separately, because there's no native way in Studio One to record a bus. Now there is a second way you can kind of record a bus, which is called ghost recording. Now the way ghost recording works is you create some ghost outputs in the song setup, and then those ghost outputs are actually going to be used for your bus. Your bus is going to output to this ghost output, and then you're going to use that ghost output to input into an audio track that you're going to record. So if you can imagine this in a simple way, I'm taking the sound from my bus, I'm putting it into like an invisible audio trash can, and then from that audio trash can, or that audio can, I don't know what's a trash can, but that audio Netherland or Neverland, you're going to take that audio and feed it into an audio track, and then you're going to record that audio track. I'm going to go to song setup. I'm going to go to outputs. And in this case, I already have my ghost output created, but all I would do is I would just go add stereo. I would name it like ghost output 1. And then make sure it's not going to any actual outputs on your interface. You're not going to main. It's just like I said, a dummy output. There is one caveat to this. Make sure you actually don't use more than one ghost output. I've tested this using like a second one that I made because I thought I'd use that for another part of the song, some other files I was ghost recording, and it causes a visible delay. I don't know why this is a bug. I did so many tests and I've confirmed using that kick sample that if you use the second ghost output, it's going to like cause a latency issue. So only use one ghost output and you'll be good. Okay, so we've got our ghost output created, and now what we're going to do is I'm going to take this bus and I'm going to output it to that ghost output, which is here, ghost 01 or ghost 01. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit T on my keyboard. I'm going to create a track called, in my case, Vocal Elmo Chorus Ghost Rec for ghost recording. Call it whatever you want. I'll leave it on auto color. The format will be stereo, no effects chain on it. Input is actually going to be the output that I created in song setup. So Ghost 01, the output is main. Okay. Now I've created this audio track, and I'm just going to mute my previously mixed down output. That was the file that we created in method 1 or step 1. Okay, so now I've got my audio track, I've got my bus, I've got the sends off, I've got my insert effects on. I turned them off for something I was explaining earlier. Keep your insert effects on the bus. And all I'm going to do now is make sure that, again, I've got my input, Ghost 01, my output of the ghost recording audio track is going to main, and I'm good. Again, just to reiterate, I created a ghost output. I'm taking the bus that I have with all my audio tracks. I'm outputting the bus to that output, that ghost output. Then I'm using that ghost output as an input to my audio track. It gets confusing because we call it output, but just think of it as like a placeholder or like an audio black hole that we can go in that black hole, put some stuff in there and grab it back out. So that's all we're doing. And all I'm going to do now is arm the track, and then I'm going to hit record. And I've soloed the audio track and I've soloed the bus so that only my vocal tracks that are feeding the bus and the audio track that's grabbing the audio is gonna be active. So now I can hit record. I'll just start it at the top of the loop. And there you go. And we've got everything lined up perfectly. And the second kick is lined up as well. And just to show you here, you can actually see that mixdown selection and ghost record yielded the exact same waveform. There may be some tiny differences because when you're mixing down something or recording and you've got a bunch of plugins, sometimes plugins don't always work the exact same all the time. So there might be some slight differences, but overall these waveforms are the same. And the biggest thing is they line up with each other, and the level meter would be the same on main for this, no doubt. And just to prove that, again, we'll look for a minus 10.1 on the level meter, which we will get. And I'm just gonna hit play, and we've got minus 10.1. And I don't want to embarrass myself with the rest of these vocal tracks, so I'm not going to play them. And that's it. So now you've got your ghost record method, you've got your mixdown selection method. One thing I would add, again, just for ghost record, is it's outputting to main. You can set the input to none, since you're not gonna, unless you're gonna, you want to record it again. For best practice, I would make sure that I set my bus back to main if it was on main. And then I would disable these tracks again. Just disable the tracks, and I would leave this muted. I could delete these inserts if I don't want them. I could even delete the bus if I wanted to, but it's probably just better just to disable the tracks and mute the bus, and then you're good. And again, if you want to grab the sends, you can do that from the console. I'm going to make another video on how you can grab sends from a bus or any other track, and how to grab the actual automation lanes without having to do all this copy pasting lanes and creating the send again. Studio One 6 has a way that it grabs automation effects with the lanes, but there's a little trick you have to do, which took me like hours to figure out. I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working, because it's in the manual but doesn't work like the manual says. So I hope you found this video helpful. If it was, again, please comment or subscribe, and let me know if you have any other ideas for other videos that you might want. This is for a project that I'm working on, and it's been a lot of work that I'm still doing. You can see I've hit like a track count of like 260 now. So I'm slowly like bouncing things down and trying to get things ready. And yeah, so hope you found this helpful, and enjoy your day.